That was almost really bad. My mic wasn't on. When does the madness end? And we don't know. As sellers, we don't know. We are just held hostage by the data that eBay is willing to provide us with no evidentiary support at all whatsoever. And that I don't like. That I really don't like. It's a lot of trust. It's a lot of trust there. Hi everyone, it's Lindey. Welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to go over the results of the promoted listings test that I did in my eBay store for the last half of September. If you have no idea who I am, what I'm talking about, let me introduce myself. My name is Lindey. I have multiple online businesses, and one of those businesses is an online store where I sell merchandise on eBay. For the last couple of weeks, I've been trying a promoted listings feature that eBay gives its sellers where you can pay an extra percentage in order to have your listing as sponsored and show up in a better search placement. I did a video where I tried eBay promoted listings exclusively for 1 full week. I will go ahead and link that video up here in case you want to go watch it after this video is done. But I will give you a spoiler alert. That test did not go well. But I have to say that I do think part of it was my own fault because the way that I decided to perform the test, I feel was working against me versus using promoted listings as a way to amplify the current things that I was doing to bring traffic to my items already. And so that's what I wanted to try doing the last 2 weeks of September. I wanted to use promoted listings in combination with other things that I was doing to see if I can achieve a desired result. So now I am going to go ahead and spoil the ending of this video, but I would still implore you to watch it through to the end because I'm going to talk about all of the different things that I've learned while doing this test. But here's my spoiler alert for the video. I am completely undecided and I don't know whether or not promoted listings is really worth it or not. So there are different things that happened over the course of the last 2 weeks that makes me kind of indifferent as to why I think promoted listings works versus why I think it might be a waste of money and is way too expensive. But before I get started with all of that information, I would really appreciate it if you would hit that thumbs up button. That tells me that you appreciate the fact that I put my own eBay store at risk to test out this promoted listings tool. And also give it a thumbs up if you like my shirt today. This is actually a shirt that I designed myself. It's available on Amazon. I will go ahead and link this t-shirt down in the video description if you are interested in it, but I might be biased, but I like it a lot. And if you are interested in information about selling online with platforms like eBay, please do remember to subscribe if you haven't already. And while you're down there, ring that notification bell. That way YouTube will notify you whenever I post a new video. All right, now we're gonna talk about a lot of different things with this promoted listings test, and we're gonna start with how many sales I achieved using promoted listings and how much money I have to pay as a result of those sales. So to do that, we're gonna go into my computer and I'm going to show you the actual graphs and figures of this test. So here we are in the marketing tab of my eBay Seller Hub. And over here on the left-hand side, this is where you're going to access all of the information for promoted listings. Now, I don't want to look at the entire month of September for this promoted listings test that I did because I do not want to include the 1 week first test that I did. I just want to look at the 2 weeks where I was running the trending ad rate. So that was from September 16th through September the 30th. So this is what my promoted listings data looks like. So during this period of time, I received 144 sales as a result of somebody clicking on a promoted listings item, and 144 sales turned into $1,921.79. Now this number here is kind of irrelevant because this is just going off of the prior 2 week period, which I wasn't running promoted listings barely at all. So the fact that it says up 591.57%, that's not an increase of total sales. It's number of total promoted sales versus the prior week. And because I was barely doing promoted listings prior to this week, these numbers, these green numbers here are pretty irrelevant. The only time these numbers would be relevant is if I was doing promoted listings month over month and I could see if my promoted listing sales went up or down from the prior period that I was using promoted listings. So during this 2 week time period, I received 144 sales resulting in $1,921. And I paid a total of $161.59 in total ad fees. Now, this is what I wanted to talk about the most about this promoted listings test. I paid a ad rate average of 8.41%. Now, this is on top of my final value fee. And this is important. This is why I feel like promoted listings adds a lot of expenses into your eBay seller costs. Because I am on eBay managed payments, that means that my final value fee is already 12.5% on every single sale. You add the ad rate to that, that means that on average for every single sale that sells using promoted listings, I am paying almost 21% of a final value fee. That's the 12.5% plus 8.41%. That comes out to 20.91% that I am paying every time one of these items sells. That's a lot of money to be paying for every item that sells. So now here is something that I really wanted to point out that I found fascinating about eBay promoted listings. There's a lot of speculation that the more you will pay for a promoted listing ad, the more impressions your listing will have on the search pages. And my graph that I'm about ready to show you reflects that this could be true. So now what I want to do is I want to expand this graph, and I'm going to show you what this period looks like coupled with the week prior where I was only promoting my listings at 2% versus the ad rate that is dictated by eBay. So for that, I'm going to go back to September the 9th. September the 9th was when I started my initial promoted listings test. So check this out. This was the week that I promoted everything at 2%. I saw some results, but not a lot. And I went over kind of how that went in that previous video that I did that, again, I've linked up here or down in the video description. But this right here, September 16th, is where I stopped the 2% ad rate and I switched it to trending for all of the items in my eBay store. And look at what happened. This one is fair, and then trending ad rate, boom. And now let's not look at organic. Let's just look at the promoted. So this was everything promoted at 2%. This is where 2% stopped. I switched everything over to the trending ad rate, which is significantly higher. Percentage change, 2% versus 8.41% on average. So this is where 2% ends, and boom, that's trending ad rate. And then look, the entire time I'm doing trending ad rate, there was not one day where the impressions dipped below where it was I was only paying 2%. 2%, all the impressions were all the way down here. As soon as I switched to the trending ad rate, all of the impressions stayed well above where I was. This is probably the most significant thing that I've learned doing this promoted listings test. And this is the one thing that I wanted to communicate with all of you guys as something that I learned throughout this promoted listings test, was that I believe trending ad rate versus selecting your own lower ad rate matters significantly. There's always been speculation that selecting a 1 or 2% ad rate versus whatever eBay dictates as the trending ad rate, there's always been this speculation that there might not be a difference in impressions that your listings get. To me, this graph that I'm showing you says that there is a big difference in the number of impressions that you get, whether you pay a higher ad rate, like trending that eBay says, or you just select 1 or 2% on your own. And I think that that had to do with a big part of why I ended up getting a lot more sales in the last 2 weeks than I did the 1 week. So when I did the promoted listings test of 2% over the course of 1 week, it resulted in roughly 21 sales if memory serves. But then 2 weeks, 144 sales. Yes, it's 2 weeks versus 1 week. That's a significant difference that you can't ignore. The only other factor that came into play during these last 2 weeks versus the week prior was during this time frame, I was running markdown promotions. I was sending out offers. I was accepting a lot of offers. So I was doing all of those things that I would normally do to drive traffic, not just running promoted listings like I did in that 1 week week prior. So the only thing is it's really hard to know how many of these sales were achieved by the use of promoted listings alone versus all of those other things that I was doing, like doing a markdown sale or sending out offers. Because here's the thing with promoted listings. You have to take into consideration cookies. Not those kind of cookies, but computer cookies. If a potential buyer clicks on your listing and it's a sponsored ad, the cookies remember that they had originally clicked on it as a promoted listing. So that means if they come back later to buy it, you're still going to be paying the promoted listing fee. Same thing if they click it and watch it and you send them a private offer and they decide to accept your offer, you are still going to have to pay that promoted listing fee because they originally clicked on the sponsored listing. So it's really hard to say how many of those sales only was a result of doing a trending rate with promoted listings versus that in combination with all of the other things that I did to get traffic to my items. And that's the one issue that I really have with promoted listings that I cannot seem to get past. That's why it has taken me so long to even try promoted listings again. The fact that you just don't know. You don't know if it was the result of promoted listings that got you the sale or if the item would have sold eventually. Just like I talked about in the last promoted listings test video that I did. I sold some things that were promoted that I know would have sold relatively quickly had it not been promoted at all. And so you never know if it's actually worth it to pay eBay an extra fee in order to have your listing be sponsored. And that's the part that I can't get past because you could be paying eBay an extra fee when you didn't have to. So now I want to show you guys the total amount of sales that I had during that 2-week time frame so we could see how much of it was promoted listing sales versus how much of it I didn't have to pay an extra ad rate for. So now here we are also going to see a very big difference between this last 2 weeks versus that previous week test that I did. So in that previous week test, again, I talked about in the video that I did, I had only 1/3 of the total sales during that time frame that actually resulted from promoted listings. Now it's almost the flip side using the trending ad rate. So for the time period of September 16th to September 30th, the total sales that I had in my eBay store was $3,226.39. So a little over $3,200 in sales overall, and $1,921 of those sales were promoted. So now it's completely flip-flopped. Honestly, I'm not sure exactly what that could mean. It could mean that doing the trending ad rate resulted in more impressions, resulted in my items getting out there more, but then at the same time, it could just be because I was running markdowns and sending offers and doing all of those things that I would normally do anyway. But the one thing that I am getting is that something I was doing over those 2 weeks resulted in more sales, which just happened to be promoted at a much higher ad rate, meaning I paid eBay almost 21% on every single item that sold versus just a regular final value fee and not having anything sponsored. So I think all in all, that tells me that eBay is more likely to put your listing out there with a lot more impressions if you're paying a higher ad rate. You can't shame them for that. Get your money, eBay. Because you can see here, during the 2 weeks in September, I had almost 1 million impressions. Now, if we go back in time and we look at the week prior to this, I had only 304 impressions. So now again, we're looking at 2 weeks versus 1 week. So if we take an estimated 1 million impressions in 2 weeks and we cut it in half to make it only a week on average, that's still almost 500,000 impressions in 1 week. So almost 500,000 impressions at the trending ad rate versus only 300,000 impressions at promoted at 2%. So I received almost double the impressions because I paid 4 times the ad rate. So again, this tells me that trending ad rate does matter when it comes to how many times your listing is going to be put in front of buyers. But then there's always that one little piece of me that says, maybe it's not all the promoted listing. Maybe some of it has to do with those little things that I do already, like running sales, sending offers, doing promotions, which promotions are different from promoted listings. A lot of people get them confused. Promoted listings is paying extra for a sponsored ad. Promotions is something like running a buy one, get one 50% off sale store-wide. So there are various different promotions that you can do. I dabble in a little bit of all of them. I don't really find promotions to be super effective. I find markdown sales to be the most effective, but I still do a little bit of it just to try to play with the eBay algorithm a little bit to get some results. So my problem is now, I can't say definitively whether or not this increase in impressions is solely based on the trending ad rates in eBay. That's what drives me crazy. I hate not knowing. I hate not knowing. I wish I had a definitive answer for this. And I think that means that I have to continue to do promoted listings to see what's gonna happen. But I don't want to. It's too expensive. It's really expensive. So now let me talk about how much it cost me to run promoted listings in my store for the month of September, and how much it impacted how much I'm able to pay myself and how much it affected my net sales overall. And for that, I'm going to go into my sales report. So a couple of days ago, I did post my September sales recap. So go ahead and go back and watch that if you want to get an overview of everything that sold for me over the course of September. But I did have a total of $4,927.37 in sales. And of that, I ended up paying 46.2% in seller costs. So a big chunk of that came from promoted listings. So let's scroll down. I'm not going to go over all of this information because I already went over it in my sales recap video. But we can see here that for the month of September, I paid a total of $168.04 in promoted listing fees. Now I want to talk about how much that impacted my paycheck and my net profits. But we also have to take into consideration that I only used promoted listings for half of the month. But if I had run promoted listings for the full month, if we just do a rough estimate of doubling that number, that means that I actually lost $168 off of my paycheck. And that's only for $5,000 in sales. Let's keep that in mind. $5,000 in sales is not the norm for me. I usually get more like $6,000, $8,000, $10,000 in sales a month, depending on how much work I can do. So this was a lot lower sales month for me. So I would hope that if I was to continue using promoted listings and I was also listing more, which I did not do very much in September, that would result in more sales, which means I would be paying more in ad fees. But then I'd have to figure out if paying that extra money in ad fees is worth eating into my paycheck. And again, that's really hard for me to do because there is no definitive answer if it's the promoted listings doing it or every other thing that I normally do. Because I've had $5,000 sales months before, listing very little like I did in September, and I wasn't using promoted listings then. So is it the promoted listings that did it this time? Or is it the other stuff? I don't know, and that's what kills me. And that's why I gave you a spoiler alert at the very beginning of this video. I don't have a definitive answer. I don't know how to feel about it. Will I continue to run promoted listings? I don't know. I just don't know because it's so expensive. It's so expensive. Paying almost 21% in final value fees for every item that sells. It's so expensive, especially because my average sale price is only $14 to $17 most of the time. And that's with free shipping. So because I work with a lot slimmer profit margins, giving eBay almost 21%, that's a really big chunk. That's something I really have to take into consideration. So do I think you should do promoted listings? I know that's probably why you're watching this video this whole time. If you reach this point in the video, you're probably waiting for me to give you some epiphany as to whether or not I think promoted listings could be a good strategy for your eBay store. And honestly, that's up to you to decide. But from what I can tell, let me give you these bits of advice on who I think promoted listings would be a good strategy for. I do think promoted listings would be a very good strategy for those sellers that have a lot of competition in some areas. Not just for a lot of competing active listings, but also if your competition is really battling a lot on price. Because promoted listings can help you price a little bit higher than your competition, because if you have some competition and everybody has the exact same price for the exact same item, I see promoted listings as being beneficial because it gives you a really good search placement and you might be able to squeak out a little bit more money for your item. For instance, there were some items that I had promoted where I was not the lowest price, but my listing is the one that sold. And I do think that promoted listings probably had something to do with that. And then on the flip side of that, if you're selling in a category that has a lot of competition like clothing, if you're selling something that is not super exact, but there's a lot of competing listings that are similar, it might be beneficial for you to have your listing as promoted, because if someone is just searching a general term like women's size 8 jeans, there's going to be a lot of search results. And if someone is searching a really vague search term, if your listing is promoted, you will have a better search placement and a buyer won't have to scroll through dozens of pages to find your listing. I do also think that using promoted listings is very helpful if you can afford it. So if you don't have very slim profit margins, if you have a lot of margin to work with and you can afford to pay a little bit more for promoted listings, I think it's a really good idea, because you can see that over the course of September, I only spent $168 in promoted listings fees to get a little over $2,000 overall in sales. So if you have the margin to spend a little bit more money on advertising your product, I do think that it's a beneficial tool. And then I do think that there is a significant difference in using the trending ad rate versus selecting 1, 2, or 3% as a promoted listing rate. I saw a definitive spike in promoted listings impressions when I went to the trending ad rate versus just doing everything at 2%. So I do think that that matters. But I do think that sellers need to be very, very careful when selecting the trending ad rate, because if you're not careful, if you're not doing the math in the moment, you can end up giving away a lot more profits than you intended to, because the trending ad rate is going to depend on the category, and eBay can raise it or lower it at any given time. That's something else that bothers me. eBay is the one dictating the trending ad rate. They're the one that says if it goes up or down. So at what point does it just keep going up and up and up and up, and then suddenly everybody's paying a 20% ad rate in addition to their final value fees, and they're giving away 1/3 of their sale price just for selling their item on eBay? When does the madness end? And we don't know. As sellers, we don't know. We are just held hostage by the data that eBay is willing to provide us with no evidentiary support at all whatsoever. And that I don't like. That I really don't like. It's a lot of trust. It's a lot of trust there. But anyways, that's all I have for you guys today. If you enjoyed this video and you appreciated all of the information and all of this testing that I've been doing for you guys, please do remember to hit the thumbs up before you leave. I do greatly appreciate it. Again, if you're digging my t-shirt, I will link it down in the video description. It is my design. I designed this t-shirt a few years ago, actually. It's been on Amazon. So it's been around for a while. I love this t-shirt. I'll link it down in the video description, and I'll also put it in a pinned comment at the top of the comment section. Leave me a question or comment down in the comments below. Do you currently use promoted listings? What ad rate do you use? Do you use trending? Do you select your own ad rate? Have you tried both like I did? If you did, what's the results? How do you feel about it? Do you feel like you're paying too much for promoted listings? Let me know. All that good stuff down in the comment section. Don't forget to subscribe, like, ring the notification bell, all that jazz before you leave. I greatly appreciate it, as it does help out my YouTube channel significantly. And thank you guys again so much for watching. I will see you guys with my next video. Bye-bye.